Hi, and welcome to Bible Study with Friends. We are here tonight starting a brand new Bible study with my friends Natalie and Allie. We are going to be doing a verse-by-verse Bible study in the book of Jonah, and we'll be talking more about that as we go along. If this is a blessing to you, if maybe you've seen some of the other Bible Study with Friends, and you'd like to make sure that you get every week as I post these, be sure to hit subscribe and like and the little bell. The little bell will make sure you get an email every time I send a post onto the website. So anyway, welcome you guys.
Hi.
Good, you're talking tonight. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Listen, we're going to be starting the book of Jonah, and I'm going to be going into some details. The first week, whenever we start a Bible study, we want to do a kind of a 10,000-foot view, an overview of the book, and talk about some of that. Most of us, even people that are not have never even opened the Bible, can tell us roughly the story of Jonah and the whale. And we're going to talk more about this because really what most of us know about Jonah is from chapter 1 of the book of Jonah. And we don't really get very much into the other chapters because they become progressively uncomfortable as we go into that. And the subject matter for the book of Jonah is very much applicable today. It's applicable to all of us. And we'll be getting into that, and really perhaps an uncomfortable conversation in the future, in the next week or so. But the themes of Jonah, I want to get into that. But the themes of Jonah are basically two, and they're very modern themes. One is depression. Jonah suffers depression at least twice in this book, and perhaps for the whole book. But the other one is racism and partiality. We're going to talk more about racism in a minute, but here you might be thinking, and I've got my black friends who are watching. My past church has been significantly black. I have a number of black people and that I have taught this Bible study to. And you might be thinking, oh man, here we go. Here are two white girls and a white guy, and they're going to be talking about racism. And they're going to be talking about from the position of white privilege. We hear that a lot lately. And that's true. We are white, as you can see, because YouTube is in living color. But I think all of us, at one point or another, God makes sure that we experience prejudice, and prejudice, favoritism. Those are other words for racism. In fact, probably broader words. We're going to talk about partiality and favoritism as it comes to this story. But let's get back to this. I'm going to ask you girls later. You're a couple of Russian girls, and I'm going to ask you for your experiences, if you've ever experienced any racism or partiality, because I think we probably have some stories that tell that puts us in a position of relating to our black and brown and yellow brothers and sisters, and red brothers and sisters that really experience racism on a daily basis. But let's go back to Jonah now. What do you know about the person of Jonah? This is a pop quiz for you guys.
Well,
What can you, off the top of your head, what can you tell me about Jonah?
he was a prophet.
Okay, he was a prophet. Now he was a prophet before this book is written. This book is written about one specific area of his ministry. But if you look at 2 Kings chapter 14, we're not going to turn there, but if you look at 2 Kings chapter 14, 23 through 27, we see that Jonah was already functioning as a prophet of God. He was prophesying about what was going to be happening to Israel and Assyria. Now, this is a time in history. The book is written about 728 BC. 728 BC. And this was a period of time, if you want to put it in perspective, this is a period of time when Assyria is an enemy of Israel, and Assyria from the northeast side of Israel is coming against Israel and has already come in and attacked the northern tribes and have taken captives and have really decimated the northern tribes. Jonah is from the southern region, from Judea, and he is a contemporary with a number of what we call minor prophets, only because they're smaller books. But he is prophesying, his early ministry is prophesying to Israel about what was God going to do using Assyria. And this was before the period of Babylon. You have Assyria was coming down and attacking, and had attacked Israel a number of times. Then Babylon takes over Assyria and becomes the enemy of Israel from the north, from the northeast actually, and finally takes captive all of Israel and is arch enemy. But let me back up. That's kind of a historical background. Israel is finally destroyed and taken captive by Babylon, who was the predecessor. Predecessor. They were the nation that followed Assyria. I don't know what that means.
The aftercessor.
Is it? Okay.
No, I don't know.
I don't know either. Anyway, so we have that perspective now. We know that Jonah, just from our Sunday school days, Jonah is called to go to where?
Nineveh.
All right. Now, what do you know about Nineveh? Whenever we're doing a Bible study, we have to start asking, to do a real study, we need to start asking ourselves some questions. And okay, Jonah is a prophet of God. He's a prophet to Israel. He's functioning as that. He has a ministry, an ongoing ministry as a prophet. Where is Nineveh? Any idea? All right, let me put this, because this is going to be good in the future here. I'm going to do a sharing, and I'm going to go to. Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go to a map, and I'm going to zoom in on this map. If you can see this, I'm going to zoom in on the map. This is Israel right down here. This is in the time of the prophet. Now, notice here's the Mediterranean Sea, and here is Israel, the Dead Sea, the Red Sea. Jerusalem is down in here in Judea, and Nineveh is way over here. Now, we know that Babylon is over here. Assyria was headquartered out of this area right up here. The Tigris-Euphrates River. Babylon is down here. Assyria is up in here. And these are the days before Babylon had come and taken shape. Now, this becomes an important map, because as we're looking at this, what do we know? Jonah, down in Judea, is given a command to go to Nineveh, way up over here. And this is probably 400, 500, 600 miles. It's quite a ways from Israel, all the way up into Nineveh. And what do we know happens? We're going to jump ahead here. What do we know happens? This is our overview. What do we know happens when Jonah is told, go to Nineveh?
Go ahead.
Oh, he runs the opposite direction.
Okay, and it says, and we're going to see this, it says he goes to Tarshish. Now, Tarshish, here's Jonah down here. Tarshish is way over here. In fact, if you found it, it would be over by Spain. It's way at the other end of the Mediterranean Sea. It was like, okay, God says, go to Nineveh up here. And Jonah says, okay, I'm going to go to Tarshish, which is way over here. I mean, he says, I'm going to go as far in the opposite direction as possible. Now, that's important for us to have this in mind, because Nineveh is going to loom large here as we go. So let me go back to this, and let me go to a different page. Right here. Now, we find out some things in the book. This is interesting also. The book of Jonah, God sends Jonah to go to Israel, to go to Nineveh, correct?
Yes.
An interesting thing about this is the only book in the Old Testament that is written to go that is commanded a prophet of Israel to go to a Gentile nation with a positive message. Okay. There are times when prophets will talk about a Gentile nation and pronounce judgment upon them, but this is specifically, God is sending Jonah to a Gentile nation with a message of possible redemption. And this is one of the few times when that is the case. You could be said, well, Daniel is a prophet, but that Daniel is not really sent to prophesy to a Gentile nation. He just happens to be captive in a Gentile nation and ministers there while he is there. So this is kind of a unique book. Now we're gonna see some similarities with the idea of a prophet of God who is a member of the tribe of Israel, the nation of Israel, and he's being sent to Nineveh. Now, Nineveh is Gentile, and he is a Jew. Now, not only are they Gentile, but they are reputation-wise, they are vicious enemies of Israel. This is the headquarters for Assyria. Assyria was attacking Israel, had already taken the 10 northern tribes, had been attacking Judah. And we have here a command to go to them with a message from God. Now, we as Christians we are members of God's people, the same way as Israel was. In fact, Peter says that we who are not a people have become the people of God. We are priests. We are members of the people of God, and we have a message that we have been told to take to people that are outside of our comfort zone. Now, where were we told to take a message to other people?
All nations. In the New Testament?
In the New
Oh.
Testament, yeah. Where were we as believers, as Christians? Where were we told to take the message of God to people outside of our comfort zone?
Are you asking for the reference of the Great Commission, or are you just asking like where, like
Yeah,
a location?
the Great Commission. Okay. Now, a lot of people that are watching on YouTube may never have heard of the Great Commission. So give us about, what is the Great Commission? This
Go
is a
ahead.
pop quiz.
She's just gonna open it up and read it in Matthew.
Okay, it's in Matthew 28, towards the end of the chapter. This is where Jesus, right before he is resurrected, he's talking to, or right before he ascends into heaven, he's talking to his disciples. And he
Okay.
says, I'm with you always.
Yeah.
Go therefore. Go ahead and read it, Natalie.
Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age.
Okay, now we talk about the Great Commission a lot as evangelical Christians. We talk about witnessing to people and going and making disciples and baptizing them, and that's right out of the command. But there's an interesting little phrase at the beginning of the command: go, making disciples, baptizing. Okay, that's the progress. But go to who?
All nations.
All nations. Not just go to your neighbors, not just go to your family and friends, although we need to do that also, but go to all the nations. Now look, for us European white folks, and you're I guess Russia is considered European, isn't it?
Yeah.
I guess. Okay. You know, I've got a heritage of Irish, Welsh, and you're Russian. So we come from the European point of view. But our command as white believers is to go to all nations, including people that are not necessarily in our comfort zone. In fact, if you want a parallel verse with the Great Commission, it's in Acts chapter 1, verse 7 and 8, where it talks about, and 9, where it talks about, go therefore to Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost parts of the world. Now it's very interesting in that list: Jerusalem, Judea, that would be like my city. My Judea would be my region, even my state. But then he throws in Samaria. And to Jewish readers who are reading the book of Acts, to say to go to Samaria, Samaritans were considered half-breeds, were considered racially impure. It wasn't even allowed for a Jew to talk to a Samaritan. Jesus did. In fact, Jews, when they traveled from Jerusalem up to the Sea of Galilee, Samaria is right in between, they would go out and around a big detour. They wouldn't go through the country. Jesus went right into the country, sat down, talked to Samaritan woman of all people. But that Great Commission in Acts 1:7 is key, because it basically says, go to your city, go to your state, go to your region, but also go to the people that are not comfortable for you to go to, the Samaritans. And then go to the uttermost parts, go to nations that are way beyond your comfort zone. And when we're reading the book of Jonah as white believers, we got to be really careful that we get the heart of God in the book of Jonah. And we're going to study more of that as we see in this stuff. So let's turn to the first verse. The first 3 verses are probably the most familiar to us. Go ahead. I'm going to leave this on. I'm going to leave this here. Read, and we're going to finish up here. We're almost done with the time. for this week, this introduction. But read verses 1 to 3. And this is the first commission we have. We're talking about our Great Commission as Christians. This is the first commission of Jonah. So let's look at these verses. Just read those 3 verses.
Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, the great city, and call out against it, for their evil has come up before me. But Jonah rose to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. He went down to Joppa and found a ship to go to Tarshish. So he paid the fare and went down into it to go with them to Tarshish, away from the presence of the Lord.
Okay, now there's a lot in this, and we're going to do this very quickly, just in about 8 minutes. It said the word of the Lord came to Jonah, the son of Amittai. Now, this is not the first time that the word of the Lord came to him. We saw in 2 Kings, he has been a prophet before. He has received the word of the Lord and has functioned in the office of prophet, okay? And he says that it came to Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, the great city. Now, that's interesting. Nineveh was the great city. We're going to watch in the book of Jonah for the word great, because the great city, the great storm, the great fish, the great, there's a number of greats in this that really emphasize the bigness of these things. Now, the great city of Nineveh, Nineveh was one of the oldest cities in the world at the time, the oldest. Look all the way back to Genesis chapter 10, verse 11. Just flip over to Genesis chapter 10, verse 11. This is Genesis 10 is right when the sons of Noah, this is after the flood, the sons of Noah are going to spread all over the world. And we have one of the sons of Noah is named Cush. And read Genesis 10, verse 11.
From that land he went into Assyria and built Nineveh.
All right, so we have Cush coming out of Turkey, coming out of where the ark settled, and the sons are starting to disperse all over the world. And Cush comes out and he goes to this area of what's going to become Assyria, and he establishes the city of Nineveh. So we have Nineveh being an extremely old city and great. In fact, I have a little information here in my notes. Let me flip over. The population of Nineveh at the time, I'm trying to find that note here. I can't find it at the moment, but it was 250, 300,000 people. It was a huge city. In fact, at the end of the book of Jonah, God says, hey, there's 130,000 people in Nineveh that are kids. So out of 400,000, 400,000 or 500,000 people, there were 120,000 that were children, that were young. So Nineveh is this great city. And God says, I want you to go to Nineveh, the great city, and call out against it. Now that's pretty good. If I'm a prophet of Israel, and my number one enemy capital city, let's say during World War II, it would be Berlin. It would be God saying to a Christian, hey, listen, I want you to go with an evangelistic message to Berlin. And let's say, to make it even worse and in perspective, let's say he's talking to a Jewish Christian and he says, I want you to go to Berlin with a message of the gospel. Now we're starting to be very interesting, because what is the reaction in verse 3? There's a key word in verse 3. What's the first word?
But.
So God gives him a commission. I want you, a Jewish prophet, and I want you to go to the enemy city of Israel with a message from me. And Jonah said, no way. Now, this is one of the few places in the entire Old Testament where God gives a commission to a Jewish prophet, and the Jewish prophet says no. If you think through all the prophets who were sent with terrible messages, most of them were sent with messages against Israel, and many of them were thrown in jail in Israel because of their prophecy. But here we have a Jewish prophet who is he has a ministry as a Jewish prophet, and God tells him, I want you to go here, and he says, no. And he rose and fled to Tarshish. Now that's a great detail because that tells us, we saw on that map, absolutely the opposite direction. Now we have to ask ourselves as Christians, has God ever directed me to go to somebody with the message of Christ and I say, no, not them, not those people? Now I want you to do something as we're going to end here. We're at the 28-minute mark, and I want to end with this. I want you to read the whole book. It's only 4 chapters, but I want you to read the whole book of Jonah. And every time you see the word Nineveh, I want you to write in it above the word Nineveh, in your right between the line there, those people. All right. Now what's going to happen is in verse 2, arise and go to those people. And Jonah says no. And the next time we see the word Nineveh is in chapter 3, where in verse 2 he says, arise and go to those people. So Jonah arose and went to those people. Those people believed God. And anyway, I want you to do this, because if we use the term those people, we start to put into perspective some of our biases. And we're going to talk about biases and racism and favoritism and partiality next week. And we'll be talking about that for the rest of the book. Because the book is not about a storm and being thrown into the sea and being swallowed by a fish and being saved. That's not what the book of Jonah is about. It is a small piece of the overall message of Jonah to us. Okay?
Yep.
All right. And listen, we're going to stop here. God bless you guys for joining us on YouTube, being a fly on the wall. And this is a great Bible study that I'm having with my friends Allie and Natalie. And I'm grateful that you're joining us. You can watch this on YouTube as we post it. Be sure to hit the subscribe and the little bell, and hit a like, because that helps us with YouTube. That is, if you like. I don't want you to lie. If you didn't like this, don't hit the like. That would mean not be good. But anyway, we're going to stop right here. Until next week, God bless you. Now we're going to pick up in next week. We're going to go from verse 4 all the way down to at least to verse 16. This is what God's reaction is to the but Jonah went the opposite direction. And we're going to see, we saw Jonah's first commission, those first few verses, and now we're going to see God's reaction to that, disobeying that first commission. And that's sobering for Christians who have the Great Commission, and our reaction to that Great Commission can be devastating in our lives. God bless you guys. We'll see you next week. Bye.